Hello and welcome to Inside Arvada, the official podcast of the City of Arvada. I'm Sean Starr, one of your hosts. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. And we have a special crossover edition with our friends from Engage Jeffco. It's a monthly podcast hosted by Hart and Carly Moore from Jefferson County Public Affairs. So we had them on to talk about all things county related. We want to make sure you subscribe or encourage you to subscribe to their podcast, Engage Jeffco, where you can stay up to date on all the latest happenings at the county and engagement opportunities and things going on. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Katie Patterson. Hi, Katie.
Hey, Sean. Yeah, great episode with Johnny and Carly today. We're really just diving into kind of county and city 101. What are the differences between the county and city, our services? What are some of the similarities? And how do our organizations work together? Hi, Johnny and Carly. Thank you so much for joining us on this special crossover edition of our Inside Arvada podcast. And so can you just start off, tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do at the county?
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm Johnny Hart, and I just completed my third year at the county in public affairs, and I am a proud CSU grad. Sean should know. Go Rams. Before this job, I worked in broadcast media for 10 years, and then 10 years before that, I was kicking around newspapers, and I am one half of the Engage Jeffco podcast. So Carly is our newest team member, and you can talk about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. And thanks, Katie and Sean, for having us. I'm fairly new to Jefferson County. I've just completed my third month at Jeffco. And before that, I was also in broadcast media for 10 years, morning, TV news, really all across the state, Grand Junction, Colorado Springs, Denver. And now my alarm goes off a lot later now. So happy to be here. Thanks for the invite, guys.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to have you. And this is a crossover episode, so we're going to share this.
Yeah, tell us about yourselves.
Through your guys' feed, too. So we'll introduce ourselves to your audience as well, and maybe some of our audience who may have forgotten kind of what we do for the city. And so I'm our Vibrant Community and Neighborhoods Communications Manager, and so I provide communication support for our parks, our trails, open space, golf courses, Majestic View Nature Center, our festivals, and our arts and culture. So really all the fun things that the City of Arvada does, I get to support with communications, engagement, and outreach.
Yeah, and unlike Sean, I get all the tough stuff. So I'm Katie Patterson. I'm our infrastructure communications manager. So it's a very similar role, but for all things, think transportation, construction, roads, traffic, and then utilities. So that's our water, wastewater, stormwater, and waste hauling programs that are kind of in my realm of things. And I'm poo-pooing it, but I really love what I do. I love talking about infrastructure, and I love nerding out and learning from engineers and getting to help take what is really complex information a lot of the times from an engineer brain and help kind of make it more digestible for a general audience.
Oh, really interesting. Thanks for sharing, guys.
Yeah, and you mentioned how long you've been at the county. I've been at the City of Arvada about a little bit over 3 years, and before that I was actually with Jefferson County Public Affairs for about a year and a half, so it's good to cross paths with y'all again. And
former
coworkers.
coworkers.
For about 2 weeks.
Right, that's true. I was on my way out. You were on your way in. So we talked about doing this for a while now, so I'm so glad we're making it happen. Yeah. So let's begin by helping our listeners kind of understand our organizations, how they're similar and maybe how they're different. And so starting with the county first, going at the very top of the org chart there, we have, 3 elected county commissioners that are elected by the, citizens of Jefferson County, and there's 3 districts that they represent, similar to the City of Arvada. And so just help us understand kind of the format of the county and how it's structured.
Yeah, so there are 3 districts, like you said, in Jefferson County. So there are 3 commissioners. So Commissioner Kerr really kind of covers Wheat Ridge, parts of Golden, Evergreen, parts of Lakewood. Commissioner Dahlkemper has Littleton, Morrison, Conifer, parts of Lakewood. And then, of course, Commissioner Zenzinger is the commissioner for Arvada here. She also covers parts of Westminster. So she actually lives in Arvada currently. She's twice elected to Arvada City Council, was also mayor pro tem for a bit, also a state legislator, and now is a Jefferson County commissioner for District 1.
Yeah, and I just wanted to cover a little bit of what the commissioners actually do. They act as our governing body for the county, basically, and they all serve 4-year terms, and they're staggered. And they enact policies like establishing property tax and the adoption of the budget, and they also oversee land use cases. And they adopt ordinances like local laws for unincorporated areas of the county too. So those affect people who aren't in municipalities like you guys. So what are some of the differences and similarities to Arvada from Jefferson County?
Yeah, so the city of Arvada has 7 elected city council members. We have 4 districts, and then we have 2 at-large elected city council members. So they cover, they represent the entire city. And then we also have a mayor. So that's our 7-member city council. We also have the 3 appointees by the city council. It's the city manager, the city attorney, and the judge. And the city manager is Don Wick. We had him on a show that we can link in our show notes previously. And he really is like the CEO of the city. And he takes the strategic direction of city council, the elected city council, and ensures that staff and directors who work for the city are able to be successful in carrying out that strategic direction for staff, like for us and Katie, who are working, kind of everyday folks there at City Hall. And so there are some, similarities, not as many elected positions for the city as there are for the county, right? There's several other elected positions.
Yeah, there are a bunch of other elected officials. If you want me to get into it,
Sure.
The assessor, clerk and recorder, district attorney, the sheriff, the coroner, treasurer, and surveyor, and a bunch of other appointed ones as well, like the library and public health. So definitely there's a position for every department. There's a bunch of them.
There's a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, more elected for sure than, because those are the only ones
Just
that
the 7,
vote
yeah.
on. Yeah. Like clerk, those types of positions are all just regular hiring processes for our city.
Yep.
Yeah. And then another one that I think often has some misconceptions around it is how each of our organizations and the services we provide are funded. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the county and the county's primary tax base.
Yeah, the county's biggest funding source is property tax. And those bills just went out in January. And so a lot of people are probably opening that in their mailbox right now. The assessor with Jefferson County actually determines how much your property is worth. And then the county treasurer is kind of like the county banker and handles all the funds. Johnny knows the details of all that.
Yeah, so about 27 cents on the dollar actually comes back to the county, collected by the treasurer. But most of the rest of that goes out to municipalities, special districts, the school district, and I think it's 46% goes to school district. Special districts get 23%, and cities like Arvada get 3%. And there's 1% for urban renewal. So.
Okay, and then at the city side, we're mostly sales tax. And so we get the property tax you mentioned. I had it written as $4.31 on every $1,000. So divide that by to get to a $1 comparison. It'd be it's like 4 cents. Less than a cent
For sales tax.
No, for property tax.
Oh, yeah. I think the easy way to remember it is the average home value in Arvada is like $600,000. And so the city, when it comes back on that property tax, gets about $150 of that property tax comes back to the city of Arvada.
Okay, that's helpful because it is significantly less. We are a substantially more sales and use tax funded organization. And our sales and use tax in Arvada is 3.46% or like 3 cents on every dollar, basically.
Yeah, and then we get we get a lot of revenue also from our funding from like service fees and permit fees and that sort of thing. And we can link to some resources in our show notes of where our entire budget and revenue streams come from and where it actually goes out to as well.
Yeah, similar to what we talked about with Chris Gray recently, utilities is separately funded. Everybody pays a utility bill, and there are no taxes on your utilities.
Yeah.
I like the sneaky plug. That's good.
I was like,
it's a good plug. Go check it out.
We recently had our on.
Yeah.
And then some people pay into like metro districts and HOAs potentially that are also metro districts do have intergovernmental agreements. They're approved by city council. And then you pay a set of taxes to your metro district if you live in one. A lot of people don't live in a metro district. HOAs, though, lots of people live in. Those are their own kind of separate, not taxed entities that may have like a fee you pay that's just kind of managed by your neighborhood management organization.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So A lot of folks might not know the differences between what services the county
Right.
provides as opposed to here at the municipal level and the city level. So help us understand what are the key services the county provides.
Yeah, so some county-wide services, which of course includes unincorporated and includes all the cities that are part of Jefferson County, the county jail, the public health, human services departments, the clerk and recorder for motor vehicle. If, you got to register your car, you'll probably come to one of the county DMVs. Also elections. The county runs all elections, whether you're electing an Arvada City Council member, that's all still run through the Jefferson County Elections Office. Of course, the coroner, assessor, treasurer, and city clerks are all kind of county-wide things. So that incorporates Arvada, Lakewood, everything else. Everybody can all come to the Jefferson County offices in regard to those.
Yeah, and I think we're going to probably talk about it a little bit later too, but there's some services that are similar to city services, like snow removal and public safety, but the county maintains the county roads, basically. There's some intergovernmental agreements between cities and in the county, but and they police the unincorporated areas too, so.
Unincorporated, help folks understand what that means for people or listeners who may not be so familiar with that term.
Yeah, so basically the incorporated parts of the county are the parts of the county that are governed by local municipalities. So Arvada is 38.9 square miles. We looked it up today. Governed by the city, but unincorporated areas are just the areas that don't have a local municipality. So 650 square miles of the county is just the county, and that's about 84%.
Wow, so that's a lot of roads that you'll
That's
have
a lot of
to
roads.
take
A lot of
care of and
roads, a lot of
plow.
policing.
Yeah.
Anything outside of the city limits is considered unincorporated Jeffco, and that's under the county jurisdiction.
And sometimes Arvada's funny because there are these pockets within Arvada that are unincorporated. And I
Yeah.
don't know how common that is across the county. I imagine it's somewhat common. But just in the ways that the city has annexed in further, particularly out west.
Yeah.
But I think last year the county was repaving Quaker out on the west part of town because it's technically an unincorporated Leiden town out there. But then you get to some of the intersections and we ended up collaborating between the county's pavement program and our pavement program because it didn't make sense to stop and go and things like that. So there's
I just spoke to our road and bridge department today about Quaker. Every 200 feet, it changes jurisdiction. So they just have an intergovernmental agreement that, all right, we'll just plow it today. You guys can plow it next time. Also with paving and things. They talked about Quaker, 52nd as well, and a lot of other roads are part of that agreement that
Yeah.
they're not going to pick up their plows for 200 feet and then start plowing again.
Right.
So everybody's a team around here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
totally.
that's your snow. That's our snow.
Right.
And then some of our services too that we've kind of talked about, up to this point, but within the city limits, we do drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, waste hauling services, all of our roads. We, maintain, plow, traffic signals, those sorts of things. We also have state highways that are CDOT, right, through the city. So those are managed differently by the state, not the county or the city. Parks, 2 golf courses, not all of the golf courses.
Right, there's one that's special district. Yeah.
The Majestic View Nature Center, athletic fields, and then our community and economic development planning and housing, building, permitting folks.
Yeah.
That anytime you're inside city limits, basically, we're providing those services.
So a lot
Yeah.
of crossover, but it kind of just depends on where you're at on the map, right? If you're
Yeah.
within city limits or not, and it's going to be determined whether you're served by the city or the county. Makes sense.
And let me plug our website because we just went through a redesign, and I want people to go see our beautiful new website. But if you want to look for more of our services that we provide, through human services or public health, you can go to www.jeffco.us/101.
Oh, nice. We love a 101.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we talked a little bit about unincorporated Jefferson County, and there are times when that might confuse people on who they should reach out to. Who do I go to? So it's a great plug for jeffco.us/101.
Yeah. What about for the city? What's the best way that residents can get a hold of you guys?
So the best way is through our online portal called Ask Arvada. And I know sometimes going through an online portal and feels like not so personal, and you have to go there and you create your profile and you just want to like call or email someone directly. But honestly, Ask Arvada is the way to go. It's the best and most efficient way to get directly in contact with the right person rather than calling around and getting, sent to another line or emailing around and getting your email forwarded. If you go through Ask Arvada, there's a whole drop down of like, what is your issue or your topic? And then that means it gets routed directly to the correct person, the correct department. And, we get those every day. And so it's arvadaco.gov/Ask Arvada. You could literally just Google Ask Arvada. And that's the best way for folks to get in touch with anyone with the city. Feedback, we call it. A lot of times it's, problems or complaints, but we get occasional compliments about our services through Ask Arvada as well.
Or to report real problems,
right,
too.
yep.
Yeah, like there's a pothole on my road or, things like that, too.
Yeah.
Sign down. All that stuff is, like, going to be routed the best place the fastest that way. I will say that Utilities does have their own phone line because that's one of our biggest direct-to-customer service providers, and so you can call them at 720-898-7070 Monday through Fridays, regular business hours, 8 to 5.
And then, we have a line specifically for our animal management too, right? And so we have kind of business hours line. If you have an issue with a dog on the loose or something like that off leash, you can call 720-898-6850, or if it's like urgent or after hours, you can call 303-980-7300. So maybe you don't need to go through Ask Arvada if you have like, an off-leash pet running around your neighborhood or something like that. And so we have an animal management team that's part of our police department within the city. So I wanted to plug Ask Arvada one more time, and that we're doing an upgrade to it here in the next couple of weeks. And so our users of that system will notice some upgrades kind of slowly rolled out over the year. But you will have to go in and create a new profile for the new Ask Arvada, so you might get thrown off a little bit at first, but it's a great system, and like I said, most efficient, best way to get your concerns addressed by the city.
That's great.
Yeah. So what are the best ways for folks to stay engaged with the county, stay up to date about what is going on, the latest news, community engagement opportunities? I'd imagine there's some newsletters, some social media. How can folks stay up to date?
Thanks so much
county
for
news?
asking, Sean. Yeah. Of course, there's always the county commissioner meetings most Tuesdays at 9 a.m. You don't have to be there in person if you don't want to. You can listen to it on your commute via WebEx. Also, I want to plug our Jeffco Commissioner Town Hall, February 19th at 6 p.m. It's on Zoom. Everything's completely on Zoom. So, again, you can just log on from wherever you are, listen in. And there's a way now that you can record your question for the commissioners, kind of like leave them a voicemail, basically. And then we'll play those, most of them, during the town hall. And people can ask their questions. If you live in the city limits of Arvada, if you live outside the city limits, wherever you live in Jefferson County, you can take part in the town hall.
Yeah, I'm excited about the voicemail thing, too. So it's, what is it again? It's Speak
Pipe.
Yeah, there we go.
It's on our website, jeffco.us/town hall, and you'll get linked right to it.
And then, like you said, you alluded to it, we have the Engage Jeffco podcast and the Engage Jeffco newsletter. The newsletter comes out every third Thursday every month, and same with the podcast. We may be trying to do a little bit more with the podcast, but the newsletter is at least once a month. And you get a bunch of news from Arvada, from all the other different cities in the area, a bunch of organizations that, are important to Jeffco residents. So if you want to check that out, it's www.jeffco.us/805. And then we also have 30 boards, more than 30 boards and commission to people can volunteer for, and then departments like open space, parks and open space, and human services always asking for volunteers. So just hit us up on the website, and you can find some of those opportunities.
Yeah, if you're thinking there at home, I could do this better. Well, hey, go ahead and apply for one of those boards and commissions. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Very cool. And pretty similar on our end of things with obviously this podcast. Ours is called Inside Arvada for our Engage Jeffco listeners. And we try to be as thorough as we can on our website with having, if you Google something, we hope that our website pops up if it's a city service or program. And that's arvadaco.gov. We have a bi-weekly e-newsletter called Arvada News. And so that comes out every other Friday. The Arvada Report is our bi-monthly print publication. Print is not dead. It's very popular publication. And so that has news from, all across the city. Obviously, it's a little bit less timely in that it's every 2 months. Social media, we use our Facebook and Instagram accounts quite a bit. And city council meetings are every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m.
Hit up the Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners meeting in the morning, and then
There you go.
Right,
Yeah, make
yeah.
a whole civic day of
Right,
it. Yeah.
exactly.
Tuesdays.
Yep.
Okay, so before we go, what else? What haven't we covered, everybody? I'm sure there's more. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I spoke to our Director of Human Services today as well about just how they, here in Jeffco, work with the city of Arvada, and she mentioned that the city of Arvada is great partners when it comes to human services and sheltering those who don't have a roof over their head, and there's an intergovernmental agreement with that as well, and they provide motels for people when it's, below freezing and below 10 degrees. Arvada and other faith community members just open up their doors or prepare meals or something. So even though we talked about a lot about how we're different, there's a lot that we also work together on. And our Director of Human Services really said that Arvada is a great partner, and it's a good ongoing partnership to have. So that was nice to hear.
Yeah, such a complex problem that the whole region is trying to solve. No one has an easy answer to it. So you need those collaborative partnerships and pooling resources to really make a difference.
Yeah.
One misconception I know that we've discussed about clearing up is we talked so many different services that the county provides. Jefferson County Public Schools is not part of Jefferson County.
No, it's their own entity, and they get as we talked about with the property tax, they get their own funding there too. So yeah, same name, but they are not a part of county government, Jefferson County government. So.
Right. The schools are inside the borders, but it's a
Right.
different organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any misconceptions about Arvada that come across that you're frequently fielding questions about, or?
What's in the water tower? Is there water in the water tower?
Not anymore. No.
Okay.
I think they maybe did fill it in so that it was stable.
Okay.
Like it's been stabilized somehow, but it's not in use or anything.
No.
It's not functional. Yeah.
Yeah, decommissioned in the 80s or 70s.
Sounds right. Yeah, 70s. By our Arvada Urban Renewal Authority,
There we go.
actually took upon the project to restore it, and just did an awesome job of restoring not only the water tower but this whole Old Town Arvada area over
Yep.
the last couple decades. And we'll have to share some photos maybe through show notes or with your listeners about what this
Yep.
area used to look like, because it's shocking going back 20, 30 years. Another plug for previous podcasts. We had the old director of Aura on as a guest in Marine Fair, and she provided just some really interesting stories about just the incredible work that the urban renewal has done throughout the community. So shout out to Aura.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of podcast episodes that people need to go and catch up on, or if they probably have already listened to it
Right.
if they're listening
Yeah.
to this one.
Right,
But
yeah.
But
I-
our Engage Jeffco with the treasurer,
Yeah, it just came out a week ago. So it came out with the January episode of Engage Jeffco newsletter. And I kind of wanted to see, we started the podcast about a year ago to engage our residents, our constituents where they are, which is, podcasts. Like people listen on their commute. That's why we framed it as a 20-minute conversation. So someone who has an average commute from Jeffco to maybe Denver can listen to one episode a month. And I think it's just kind of an interesting new way that entities are reaching out to, their constituents. Why did y'all get into the podcast game?
Yeah, I would say it's similar, right? Like we want to be where people are, which is really that means being on every channel, right? Like we want to try and catch everybody where they are. For some people, that might be our print newspaper, and for other people that may be a podcast on their commute. And so that was definitely part of it. And then for me personally, I really was drawn to the slightly longer form that you can, you don't have to go watch a whole 2.5 hour council meeting, but you maybe can get a little bit more than you can get out of a 2-minute read or a social media post or even a web page. You can do a lot of good communication in the written form, but there's just something about both humanizing the people doing the work and putting some more context that really is hard to explain otherwise.
Yeah, there's so many great people that go unseen, both in the county and in the city, that do all the hard work. We get the easy job, We
Right.
show up and talk into a microphone. So, that's kind of the reason why we started Engage Jeffco, is to, actually give those people their due. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can make it just more accessible or easier to get information about what's going on, that was kind of one of our original intents, right? Is throw the podcast on, like you said, commute to work, or maybe walking the dog, or doing the dishes, or whatever it may be. And so, Katie said it really well. Just kind of being able to go past this sort of short snippets on social media or headlines and be able to have a kind of more in-depth conversation is a big draw for why I think we started it. So, yeah. Well, before we let you go, we do trivia now. We used to do a lightning round, and that kind of got a little stale, so we do trivia. Got 3 questions here.
And only Sean has looked these up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also
Yeah,
don't
we
know the
couldn't
answers,
study.
so, yeah.
We wanted to, but we couldn't.
I will say, if you know the answer right away, let's make sure the other 2 can try and guess.
Okay.
Okay.
And make a fool of themselves. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so question number 1. Where was the first traffic light installed in Jefferson County?
Oh, my.
Grandview and Wads.
Yeah.
That's what
a block away
That's
here.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure that might be right because it was the first paved road.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I don't know if that was in the whole county. I don't know.
But yeah, first traffic light there at Old Wads and Grandview here in Old Town Arvada
Oh,
on
wow.
October 15th, 1941. Yeah.
There we go.
Wow.
All right, question number 2. How many incorporated towns or cities are located within Jefferson County, either entirely or even just partially?
Ooh,
I looked at the map today.
yeah.
12-ish?
No, it's got to be more than
12.
that. What?
That's exactly correct. Yeah.
I did look at the map today, but I didn't count them up.
I
so
would
that
have
was
thought it would
lucky.
have been 50.
No, it's 12. Can you name them?
Probably.
Yeah, let's see it.
Okay. Lakewood, Arvada, Wheat Ridge. There's a smidge of Superior in there.
Yeah, there is. Very
Wow.
impressive. Yeah.
Morrison, Conifer.
Conifer's unincorporated, but you're doing great.
Oh, so it doesn't count as a city or town?
Right.
Okay.
Golden.
Help me. Thank you.
Golden.
Bomar.
Yes.
Littleton.
Oh.
Littleton.
How many is that?
8.
You're missing 2. And I'm not shocked that you haven't gotten them.
I feel like I was thinking of one.
Westminster.
In Arvada?
In Jefferson.
Westminster.
Do we say Arvada?
Did you
I
say
said
Arvada. You said Arvada.
Mountain View?
No.
There's a little town
Oh.
called Mountain View.
No,
and
I
then,
didn't know that.
Edgewater.
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 Isn't
I knew there
Evergreen?
was something.
Evergreen. So the unincorporated areas that you might think are towns are like Aspen Park, Bergen Park, Buffalo Creek,
Okay.
Conifer, Evergreen, Genesee, Idledale, Indian Hills,
Yeah.
Kittredge, Pine. Those are all like towns, but there's no official town
Right.
government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so guess who has to do all the services for those?
Jefferson County.
Yeah, exactly.
Ding, ding.
Whoa. I totally would have thought most of those were incorporated
Yeah.
in some way. Yeah.
Some
Totally.
of those, Buffalo Creek and Kittredge, Pine, if you've never been up kind of that 285 corridor there, they're
Yeah.
really cool to check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, final question here. Which is
Okay.
older, Jefferson County or the city of Arvada?
Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Because Jefferson County was a county before Colorado was even a state.
Look at that. We
Oh.
can't put anything past you, Carly.
That's. I wasn't sure if maybe Arvada had started before Colorado was the state too, but
I don't know.
According to what I could find, you're right. The county was established in 1861 along with 16 other counties before the state was even established there. Arvada was platted or like mapped, didn't become incorporated, but in 1870.
You knew that
so
too. I know
about
you
9
did.
years
Yeah.
after the county, Arvada was platted and then incorporated in 1904.
And
Yeah.
1875 is or 1876 is the state because it's
Right.
150 this
Yep.
year.
Yeah.
150,
Yes.
250, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
All right. Well, thank you so much, Johnny and Carly. This was
Yeah.
great. This is our first ever
Thanks.
crossover episode, so I think it went really well. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
was really
Thanks
fun.
for inviting us, and we hope you guys gained some of our Engage Jeffco listeners, and we hope some of your listeners come over to Engage
Yeah.
Jeffco too.
Share the wealth.
Absolutely.
Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what kids say. Like and subscribe.
100%. Smash that subscribe button.
Smash it.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. As a reminder, we love to hear from you, all our listeners. You can text us with the link at the top of the show notes or email us at podcast@arvada.org. We love your feedback on this episode, any questions you might have, or any other episode ideas you'd like to learn more about. And for news and events coming up soon, I will do a couple infrastructure things as usual. So the work for the sewer line replacement on Sheridan, kind of between 68th and 76th there, has been going on for really the last year. It's been a really big project, and they are almost done.
All right.
76th is open now. 76th Avenue is open, and the trail should be open soon. If it's not already, they just have to pour the concrete to get that trail restored, because the sewer line did go right next to the trail. And most of the side streets and lanes should be open soon. And additionally, back on January 20th, the City Council agreed to the city's recommendation not to construct the underpass portion of the West 72nd widening project due to some really considerable cost escalations that the city kind of got new cost figures on in mid-late December. And so a difficult decision that the city had to make there. And there's a community meeting just a couple of days ago on February 2nd that shared more information. And so our timing was just a little off with the podcast on this information, but there is information online. So we'll link to all of that information in the show notes.
Yeah, and coming up here at the end of the month is Arvada Winterfest on February 28th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Old Town Arvada. This is the Arvada Festival Commission's annual multicultural celebration featuring a variety of interactive performances and traditions. And to learn more about that event, visit arvadaco.gov/winterfest. And as we mentioned last time, the best way to stay up to date on all things happening throughout Arvada is to subscribe to the Visitor Center's email newsletter at visitarvada.org. Gene Gordon does a great job with that newsletter where you can find out all the things happening throughout Arvada, such as a chocolate affair, which is coming up on Saturday, February 7th. That's the Ralston House annual fundraiser here in Old Town from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's a great fundraiser and also a cool opportunity to just kind of stroll around Old Town and taste a whole bunch of different kinds of chocolates, all for a good cause. So visit ralstonhouse.org/events to learn more about that, and visit arvada.org to learn about more events and subscribe to that newsletter. Thank you to our guests today, Johnny Hart and Carly Moore from Jefferson County. Be sure to listen to our next episode with Deputy City Manager Allie Scheck, who, as Katie mentioned, will be joining us to talk about the West 72nd Avenue project. Today's podcast was recorded and edited by Arvada Media Services, and today's fun fact is that Golden is the county seat for Jefferson County, and it was actually once the territorial capital of federally recognized Colorado Territory before it was a state. But then once Colorado became a state in 1876, Denver became the capital.
Whoa.